This is the Grapple of Your Eye Show, episode 24, Sarah Jones. Hello and welcome to the Grapple of Your Eye Show. This is episode 24. I'm your host, Brett Summers, and my guest today is Sarah Jones, BJJ black belt, coach, and competitor. So welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you on board.
Thanks very much, Brett, for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So our first question to everyone in their first appearance, where did it begin for you? Where did martial arts begin for Sarah?
Martial arts began for me when I was actually within the armed forces. So when I was serving in the army, based over in Northern Ireland. And I actually didn't start off doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started off doing Muay Thai, and then so my friend, she got me into it, and I was hooked. And then she was like, "Oh, I've learnt this new martial art," and she was like really secretive about it because, like, back when I started, what you're talking, 2013, 2014, Jiu-Jitsu, although it's not that long ago, it in the jiu-jitsu time frame of things, it was still in its infancy stages.
Yes, the dark
and
ages over here. Yeah.
not as popular as it was, or as it is
Yeah.
nowadays. So she was like, "Yeah, I've learned this like new sport and stuff like that." And then I think that's I was based in Northern Ireland at the time, and my first class was at Next Gen, Northern Ireland, under Rodney Moore. So who's himself is a pioneer within the MMA community over there. And then I was hooked on that, and then got into MMA. Lost my first fight in MMA on Clan Wars against Liam McCourt, who's now an amazing MMA pioneer for women. And then that just really spiraled into me wanting to learn jiu-jitsu more. And 2014 to now, well, that's like 10 plus years. I'm now a jiu-jitsu black belt, and loving it.
Oh, well, there's a lot there actually. So let's go back first of all. So first of all, the army to begin with. What sort of bit of the army were you doing? Because I know there's all sorts of things. And was there
Yeah.
not any? I'm using my basic knowledge of everything I've seen on TV is what the army really is. So was there not any kind of combat-y sort of elements in the training or anything like that?
So when I not within like our normal PT
Okay.
and that when I first started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was just literally getting recognized as an army sport. I mean, I was the first lady within the army to join the army jiu-jitsu team, and I had to fight guys in my first competition because there wasn't any other
There
ladies
was
to
no one
fight.
else. Oh,
No, and I remember getting choked out by a guy, and it was really tough, but there wasn't anything there. To get a sport within the army takes a long time for it to get approved and that. So I'm fortunate enough that I was kind of in that small group of people that got to experience it starting out within the army.
so what was that like at that time then? Because obviously, actually, we'll focus on the BJJ bit first. So you've done your Muay Thai, you've moved across now. to your BJJ as a martial art. Were there any differences in that at first? Because obviously you're going from a striking sport to a grappling sport. How did you find that? Was it something that appealed to you, or was it something just because it was different? Or
Well, obviously, when I done my Muay Thai, I was doing my MMA and that as well. So I was kind
yeah,
of always doing like a bit of no-gi stuff. But um, no, I don't think for me. I mean, I just like getting punched in the face and punching people in the face, and it
it's
was
a
it
hobby.
was
It's
a
a
bit
stress relief.
yeah. It just both of them I just really loved. It kind of became like an unhealthy addiction.
And what happened with the MMA? And so you had the fight. How, is it something you're still dabbling in, or is this something that may come again, or have you had your
Um,
time
I
in the
mean,
cage now?
I would I would love to fight MMA again, but unfortunately, with my so I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue back end of 2017. So I kind of then had to make a choice of what discipline I wanted to pursue. And I was doing really well
Mhm.
in my jiu-jitsu and I kind of really liked jiu-jitsu. So I kind of chose that as the sport that I would more so concentrate on.
Sort of focus on.
Um,
Okay, what
yeah.
was it that made Jiu-Jitsu the winner out of the different ones you were picking? What was it that appealed to you more? I think actually that I like this one.
I think like it's not just a sport. I know as cliche as it sounds, like the community element of it and the fact that, you can be on the mats with all walks of life, people from different backgrounds, different jobs, and it just feels like an extension of your family.
Okay, so you're in the army, you're jiu-jitsuing, you're getting choked out by many different blokes, as you say, because you're the only one there in these different tournaments. When does it come round to the fact that, when did you get your first match against a female opponent in jiu-jitsu?
So that was the army competitions. So
Yeah.
there wasn't any females in the army competitions, but I was still going to like civilian competitions and competing
Okay.
against ladies there. Um, but again, like jiu-jitsu back then, like 2014, was totally different to how it is now. There wasn't as many ladies. I was a few weight categories lighter back then as well, so it made it easier for me to get matches.
We all were.
Whereas Whereas nowadays it's, I think the higher up the belts you go, the very the lesser opponents that you get as well.
Okay. How did you find, was there apart from obviously the male female thing, was there a difference between army comp and civilian comps? Because I'm in my head, I'm just picturing all these like hedge soldiers with like 15-inch
No,
necks,
so
and then you go to the other one and it's just like Dave the banker and Fred the travel agent, sort of thing.
no, it's very much run the same format as the civilian events. So Andy Roberts, he's actually a civilian himself, but the army brought him in to be head coach because they
Hmm.
needed someone who is experienced enough to oversee the team. I mean, he's been head coach on the army team now for years, and he was there when help inform jiu-jitsu within the British Army, and now he's actually created his own tactical jiu-jitsu program which has then now gone into the army for them to do more of the tactical stuff like with weapon systems and in their kit and that as well. So he's actually created
Okay.
a program that's now gone in with into the army, UK Special Forces, and stuff like that. So yeah, when they do competitions, it's very much like a civilian competition. They bring like civilian coaches in, like that you would normally see at normal competitions and that. So it's quite good and it's really well supported.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So how are you finding it then? You're in jiu-jitsu now, you're moving up maybe white to blue. How are you finding it now? Have you made the right decision? Are you looking back thinking, oh, maybe I should have done a bit more Muay Thai, or maybe I should have done that? How, as it's developing on and you're getting more into it,
Um,
how are you feeling at this point?
well, I'm very competitive person, so I think I was training jiu-jitsu properly for about 3, 4 months, and then I entered my first competition, and I think that was the Surrey Open, and I done terrible. Like I lost, I didn't medal, like I done bad, but I I loved it. I thrive in like a high stress environment. Whereas my husband, on the other hand, he doesn't like competitions and that. But yeah, I was ready to go again. Yeah, and then so from white to blue, I competed a lot.
Mhm.
Pretty much every weekend, I was going away competing.
Is this something in
Um,
hindsight now? Is this something you'd be recommending to people, or do you think maybe did you overdo it
um,
or did you under it?
No,
Because
I think burning the candle at both ends probably, you know, is not good. I was going to tournaments, I was competing, I was cutting weight, I was coming back. I wasn't giving myself enough time to think, okay, what could I learn from this tournament that I could maybe do a bit more of in the gym? It was more so compete, come back to the gym, cut weight again, go back out to a competition, cut weight again, come back. So I think in hindsight, it's good to give yourself like maybe pick the competitions that mean the most to you and
Mhm.
then focus on them rather than just literally going out and competing for the sake of competing.
So if anyone's listening to this and maybe they're thinking about, because like you say, well, there's always been that thing of competing in jiu-jitsu. 'Cause a lot of people just do it for a hobby and they're not worried about competing. Then there's other people saying, "Oh, no, you need to compete at least once or twice, etc." What advice would you have to anyone listening to this, maybe who is thinking about competing or isn't really into it at the moment? As what advice would you have to them for about competing?
I would say first off, like speak to your coach that you're training with. If you are unsure about what competition or competing's like, try and have a chat with them. If there's things that you're worried about, maybe go through it with your coach. I think it's good to try and test yourself in a competition environment. So
Hmm.
maybe like pick one where it's not going to be as busy or not as far away. Make sure you have like a good support network. And the thing about competing is, as cliche as it sounds, like winning isn't everything. Yes, it's nice to win, but it's the fact that you get out and step on the mats, and give it your go, because like that's the winning point, because most people don't even get that far.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So anyway, then, so you're burning the candle at both ends. You're competing like mad. You're getting to blue belt now. How are your skills developing? Are you picking things up that those techniques? Are there certain techniques you're developing? You think, okay, for instance, I don't know, triangles. Right, I'm loving this. I'm going to be a triangle, or I'm an arm locker, or is something? Are you developing a game as it's going
Um,
along?
yeah, so my game was, and it has changed slightly over the years. So my game was always more stand up and like heavy pressure passing. Um, but over the years, that's changed. But because I was competing more, and like back when I first started jiu-jitsu, these sub only comps weren't around as much, so it
Yeah.
was just your standard IBGF comps, and then any of the other smaller comps, they kind of took on the IBGF rule set. Whereas nowadays you've got loads of different comps, and some might adapt the IBGF rule set, but there are other rule sets out there, and then there's your submission only rule sets. So I never have been a submission hunter. I've always gone and position over submission first, get your position, get your points, then look for the submission. That's just me. That doesn't mean to say like that's what someone else could be totally different. There's no right or wrong in jiu-jitsu. It's just whatever you feel comfortable doing. But that's how I've always done it, is position before submission, because there's been like a few major tournaments that I've gone to, that people are literally so solely focused on a submission. And it's quite common in IBGF. Like if you're if you're not like sharp and quick with your submissions, someone could easily rack up 20 points on you before you've even finished thinking about doing that
Yeah.
submission on them. So I always say, position before submission, and then look to attack. Obviously, if something presents itself more quickly and you're more reactive, then yeah, sure, go for it. But don't hold on to something that's not there, or you're gonna give points away to and stuff like that. So that was my main rule set. Like that was my main thought process when I was like from white to blue, was just like,
Hmm.
heavy pressure, heavy passing, control, points.
Excellent. Yeah, I should learn from that. Still get sub on, but that's me. But okay, the rise then to purple belt. You're getting to that point now. You're in the middle of the road now. You're there. You got people there. You got people looking above, looking up to you. You got your people you're looking up to. How did it feel like hitting that purple
Yeah. So
level?
actually, my rise to purple belt. I actually um so back end of 2017, just as I was finishing off my blue belt, yeah, I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. Spent numerous times in Headley Court, it's now moved up to Birmingham area, I believe. One of the rehab centres for military personnel. I'd done a few stints in there, and then I was medically discharged.
Mhm.
And I had a stint off, probably about a year off from jiu-jitsu, just not training it, just basically trying to reset and get back into
Yes,
a better frame of
sorting
mind.
everything else out. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then like I never thought I would train jiu-jitsu again, or even be able to do any form of like arduous activities and stuff like that. But I got through it, and then I went out to the Europeans, I think 2019. Yeah, so Europeans as a blue belt 2019, and I won my weight category there. And then I was promoted to purple belt by Trev at the Europeans. And then basically from there, moving into the beginning of 2019, was when I really started to like come alive again with my jiu-jitsu. I went and done a few AJP tours that were in the UK. I then went out to the Pans in America, got silver there, and then Abu Dhabi World Pros. That was November time. Um, yeah, and that was quite a harsh weight cut, because the weight categories for that are either 70 or 90. And I was kind of about, I don't know, like 78, and I cut to 70. But so, and then after that, I then went to the Europeans, Nogi, and ended up winning my weight category and then silver in absolute. And then had so many plans, and then COVID hit, and then I wasn't really able to do much
Do anything? Yeah.
competitions. And yeah, same as everyone else, just training in your garage or with a dummy or some mats or in your living room, just trying to get some form of jiu-jitsu in.
That's fair enough. I mean, as you say, as it's gone on now, you've recently gone on to get your black belt, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And how now does that feel? Because it's like, from what people have said, it's a bit like that the old thing about the bear going over the mountain and then seeing another mountain. I don't know, but now how does it feel standing there and you know you've got to that point now? Obviously, you know everything now, surely.
Uh, I'm not gonna lie, Brett. I do have massive imposter syndrome. Yeah, they say like getting to black belt is like the pinnacle of like your jiu-jitsu career, but really you're just starting your learning journey all over again,
Mm.
either with coaching or learning, what your journey as a black belt looks like. So yeah, I very much still feel like, oh, this is really new, but it's not. But it's been a long journey to get to black belt.
I'll say on that, what you're saying about the coaching, you've been coaching as well. When did that become a thing that you thought you would try? Because obviously I know now that you're doing it quite a lot, but when did the coaching thing first start appealing to you, or thinking maybe I should try a bit of that?
Um, well, I've always had like done some form of coaching, whether it be from
Hmm.
like my time in the military where I was like instructing skill arms
Hmm.
instructor and CBRN instructor. So I've always had that kind of like instructor experience. But then when I got med discharged, sport has always been my life, and I decided to get into personal training, sports massage, help people get into fitness, or that have had like illnesses where they need to get fit, or they just want to keep general maintenance and fitness a part of their life, and
Yeah.
that they enjoy. So I think it was and also at Exile when my coach Trev used to um coach at Exile, I used to help him sometimes with the kids classes, and then
Hmm.
obviously moved to Neon, and then yeah, kind of just got approached like, do you want to take the ladies class? And yeah, just it went from there.
Okay, and how are you finding it? Because
I absolutely love
obviously
it.
you'll carry on, son. Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Excellent. Because, in the army, when you've got people there who are listening or whatever and coaching them, and with fitness is one thing, when you've got a whole class of different people who might not all be paying attention at the same time, should we say, it can be, as a school teacher, I know what I mean, it can be a bit different when you've got to, you know, like smaller people maybe, or people that aren't quite familiar with what you're trying to get across, but you're loving it. That's good. What challenges do you find as an instructor now, as a coach?
Um, Definitely trying to adapt like what I'm trying to put across to maybe people that don't necessarily understand things like how you would understand them, or like yeah, so definitely like different teaching styles and how people perceive those teaching styles has definitely
Mhm.
been a big challenge. But I'm happy to like whenever I take my ladies class, I always ask them, like when I first started, I was like, okay, like how does everyone learn? And they're like, oh well, we visually learn, or we listen and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So then it just became a mixture of like sometimes I'd like draw on the board what we were doing, like the techniques, and it would be like this is to this, and then this goes into this, so it like flows a bit like a flow diagram. um but yeah, trying to figure out like how I word things as well, which with my fatigue sometimes my word association can be a bit I mean to say one thing but it comes out a bit scrambled. But thankfully everyone knows that that's just me. I'm a bit socially awkward.
Yeah. Okay. But so moving on from that, because also now I've seen, you've got seminars going on and different things like that as well. Is this something you're looking to sort of build upon as well? Because I know you recently might have even been today actually. Because it was
Yes,
at
yeah,
seminar. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, today I had my first ever female only seminar. So it was under Rioorg. Um, so Rioorg is a charity for military emergency services and veterans, and the idea of it is to get like people into jiu-jitsu, or like I think they've now taken on like some CrossFit elements and that as well. But they run some really good programs, and any gym can become an affiliate. And what that means is if you have someone that's in, say, for example, that's in the police service or something, or is a veteran, and they've never done jiu-jitsu before, but they want to, they could approach Rioorg, and then Rioorg would be like, okay, what area are you in? We can find a Rioorg approved gym. And then they do like, I think it's either a 30 or a 60-day program where they fund it through the club that's a Rioorg approved club. And then after you kind of like graduate from that program, you then could get the chance to do what they call Rioorg 365, which is a year and they will fund it for you. Um,
That's good, man.
so yeah, so getting to work with Rioorg and do this seminar has been really great. I approached Sam actually about this seminar because
Hmm.
um, I just wanted to basically find out what the percentage and the uptake of women as opposed to men was, and just try and get women that are in these services into jiu-jitsu, or like at least try jiu-jitsu, because I think like a lot of people see jiu-jitsu and they're like, oh, it's that's not for me, it's a bit too personal space. But I always think, well, just try it, and if it's not for you, then it's not for you. At least you can say that you've tried it. But yeah, I definitely think it's a need, like it's definitely a need there to get women from those services and that within it, just because the benefits of it, you've got the self-defense, you've got the community, and all of the ladies on the mat today that came, they all work in high stress situations. So getting to be able to talk to ladies that are in a similar position, I think is quite important.
Yeah, again, then it becomes its own community, doesn't it? Yeah, but it always amazes me across all the services, and I'm sure someone will comment and correct me on this. And I think it's the same when you see it like in the States as well. A lot of these services do not have any kind of like hand to hand, even sort of training or anything. Like even like from the police through the things. For some of the, oh no, they have some sort of like restraint things and a little bit, but the actual I think it seems to be like once they've had the initial, you've done that class now, you take that off, you're a policeman now, or whatever. There's not or not, there doesn't seem to be much of that going on. And it seems to be something that nowadays I would think would be vital to the job because, there's a lot of, the days of, well, you see it in the papers all the time, the different crimes and things that are going on now and kids and all sorts. You'd think it'd be something they'd want to invest more in, but that's probably for another podcast. But anyway, yeah. So one thing I was going to say, leading on from that, you were talking about, you have your female only class as well as having the other classes. You're doing now a female seminars. Is getting women involved in jiu-jitsu like an aim for you now? Is this something that you're sort of, is that driving you, trying to sort of push the female involvement or
Yeah, I
encourage?
definitely, because obviously I've got a daughter who's
Mhm.
3. She comes with me. I mean, she's been with me mat side since she was like 8 weeks old. I would take her in a little baby carrier, plonk her on the side, and train. And now that she's a toddler, it's much more free roaming, and that in itself has challenges. But she's been with me mat side, and all of the struggles that I faced within jiu-jitsu, like I want to be able to pave the way so that when she gets to my age, like that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think, like, females in sport in general, not just jiu-jitsu, it starts at a grassroots age. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about, why is uptake in sports in general for women quite low, and it's because it all stems from primary school education and trying to engage more and get more girls into sports, and educate them so that then they come through and they continue to play those sports, and there's not any disadvantages or barriers in that way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Because it's something I know from being involved, like at the Neon in that, and with trying to push run the different tournaments and things. The female sign up is always something that is at a lower percentage compared to all that from children upwards is always lower than the males, and it's something that sort of. I guess it's puzzled me because you see a lot, but then it goes back to whether or not they want to compete again, as well as just doing it for a hobby, and you get all those
Yeah,
elements again.
and I
But
think
it's just
there are.
something that seems so many more people out there.
Yeah, I mean, I could, again, like you said, I could go and do a whole different podcast on
Yeah,
my thoughts and that of
yeah,
that, but that's a different subject. But definitely, I feel, you know, when I first started jiu-jitsu, there wasn't 20 odd tournaments on at the same weekend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nowadays, the market's too saturated with competitions. You've got about like 20 competitions on the same day, the same weekend. Whereas back in the day when I started jiu-jitsu, a well-known jiu-jitsu tournament, you wouldn't dare put your competition on the same day as them, and people spoke to each other and respected each other. Whereas nowadays, not saying that people don't speak or respect each other, but it's just, well, I'm just going to put my tournament on the same day as this person and then hope that the brackets get filled, and then it's no wonder there's no uptake because there's just so many. And also I think different things like weight categories for the ladies aren't the same as the men. What woman who's 79 kilos wants to be defined as heavy, or if they're slightly above the heavyweight 79.3 as super heavy?
As
They're
an
not,
ultra
are they?
heavy gentleman, I can relate to that. Let's make it sound cool. Yeah, give it a
So
better name,
I
make it
definitely
sound
think
cool.
like how the weight classes are in the women's category. They do need to be looked at. They do need to be challenged, and rethought about, because at the end of the day, like, some kids that are coming through puberty, through like adolescence and stuff like that, unfortunately in this day and age, that will have an impact on how they feel about themselves, and create disorders, or like negative thoughts and processes about how they see themselves at these weight categories.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like that needs to be readdressed and looked at. Pretty similar to what I touched upon earlier, is like, AJP is one of the biggest competitions out there alongside the IBJJF, yet they have all of the small weight categories, and then it gets to 70, and then there's nothing, and then it jumps to 90 or 95. That's a 20 odd kilo difference. And if you're stuck in the middle at 80, what do you do? Do you cut 10 kilos, or do you fight up and fight someone who's going to be like 100, like heavier than you? It's just,
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
100%. As I say, as someone who's ultra heavy, I'm still waiting for the day Brock Lesnar's on the other side of the map from me, because they get bigger every tournament. It's just, and it's like the difference in it is, well, it can be dangerous. If
Yeah.
you've got a
And also
really big
like
sort of,
weight categories for women as well. Um, you know, there's no leniency. So on the menstruational cycle, if you are a female and you it is that time of the month and stuff like that, and you're set to fight at 79.3, you're talking like you could at least go up another 2.5 kilos heavier, and none of that's taken into consideration with like weight categories and
yeah,
stuff
it should
like
be
that.
like an
So
allowance or something like that, just to
yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
yeah,
So
that makes
there
sense. Yeah.
definitely, there needs to be some re-education in fairer weight categories
Mm.
for women.
What what about gyms in general? What could gyms be doing? Because obviously, dare I say it, there isn't another week goes by where you get some sort of BJJ thing of some sort of dodgy coach or something going on. I mean, even this week there was another one with someone quite famous that we won't get into. But
Oh, I'd
what can
probably take
clubs
them into
do?
that.
Yeah, absolutely. But what can clubs do in general just to maybe encourage more women through the door? Because I can understand it. I want to do it. I look through, there's 20 blokes in the room. Not for me, thank you. I mean, look, it's almost, it's what you said, what you did. No, you were doing tournaments where you were the only female in there. What
Yeah.
is it,
I
apart from
mean,
your
I
hyper
think like
competitiveness and wanting to kill them
obviously in my circumstances, I'd always grown up doing sports with
all?
like guys. Like before I joined the army, I was track and field athlete and cross country athlete, and again, there wasn't many women in that, so I had to train with the boys. And then obviously going into the military, very male dominated environment, so again, I had no choice. But I think like in today's society, there is a choice. Like, you can either choose to support women coming in and creating like safe spaces for them, making sure, that they've got their own changing rooms, like access to sanitary products or hygiene products and stuff like that, and making sure that it's a welcoming environment, all safeguarding is a big thing, making sure that you have that people know if they want to complain or do anything,
Yeah.
that they're not going to be looked on upon disfavorably, and that they do have support. And also I do think like having female coaches at a gym is is a good indicator, and having females train in the gym is a good indicator.
Excellent. Okay. Now, because a lot of gyms are saying that, like, we've got our doors open, but we still don't get anyone. Whatever. But that's some good points for them to consider there. Okay. Then you talked about the BJJ competitions, but there's definitely been a rise, and especially for female grapplers in the various different tournaments and organisations that come out now. Because there seems to be every couple of months there seems to be a new one of those coming out. I know you've had a dabble in the submission only
Oh yeah.
sort of things and that. Now, how is this going? Again, is this a good thing? Is it too much? How is it developing from your point of view?
Um, so I think I've definitely decided that I will continue to try submission only events.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not my bread and butter. But then it just makes me better, because I can then just, learn a new skill set, and it will make me a better coach in understanding that skill set, and hopefully a better competitor in terms of my submissions.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I definitely think there are some good submission only events out there. And then there are not some good submission. I think, it's a tricky one, because for me, I used to obviously fight MMA and stuff like that. So
yeah,
kind of submission only events it goes back to, it reminds me of fighting a lot MMA and stuff like that. It's hard. I think as an organizer, you need to be really on the ball. You need to, understand and be fair of, like, if you're expecting someone to travel so far, they're not going to be able to sell as many tickets as a local fighter would, and stuff
yeah.
like that. Again, it's there wasn't that many, and then you've got, like, the big names like Polaris and stuff like that paving the way, and now CJI has come on board, and so there's loads of them popping up. Hopefully the market doesn't get too saturated.
But do you
But I
think
think
it's better having more places for women to apply their craft as well as the men? Because I say that the women only ones seem to be, although they all seem to be being won by that jiu-jitsu girl with the pigtails. But I forgot her name now. The sort
yeah.
of about
So
18.
uh again, this could be an unpopular opinion, but I'll just throw it out there. Um, so what I've noticed lately, and what's been quite frustrating, particularly for me being on the heavier side of the female brackets, is having all of these big name shows promoting smaller women's jiu-jitsu. Now there's nothing wrong in that, but it always seems to be a specific weight categories up to like 70, 75. And then there's nothing for the heavier ladies, like that. I fight at super heavy at the moment. I'm 84 kilos, but I'm not, and so there's not really much, and not many shows will want to put on ladies that are a bit heavier, because they either don't know many ladies that are that weight, or they can't be bothered, or it's easier just to match smaller weights because there's so many out there. But jiu-jitsu is becoming quite a popular sport, so you're going to get more ladies coming into the sport that are at the you know, I say the heavier end, I don't like to use that terminology, but they're not like 70 odd kilos or less. They're going to be a bit more.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and also the dare I say it again, I might this one get me in trouble, um, more marketable. So I put it that way. That
Yeah.
that's a nicer way of saying it. To what some, you know, no, I'm not going to say
So
any names. I'm not going to say any names.
I've basically set up like I've got a spreadsheet on my laptop of like people that I've known in the jiu-jitsu community for years,
Mm,
like and what weights they fight at, like the heavier side and that. So, if people say, oh, do you want to match up for this, or and then I can be like, oh yeah, I know a lady that's like a brown belt that's that weight,
mm,
if you're struggling to match someone. um or I've approached invitationals before, and I'm like, I'm a brown belt, I'm this weight, can you find me a match? And I've just been totally ghosted. So it is quite hard. So I'd like to see shows putting on like tournaments for like an 80 kilo bracket or an 85 kilo bracket, because there are women out there. It just needs more women to speak up and say that this is,
yeah.
let's get this on board.
Excellent, excellent. So, what about yourself then? You've got your black belt now. You're coaching. You're trying to raise the profile of, women's BJJ. What other goals are left for you? What ambitions do you have now? What's next?
Um, so I'm really wanting to push to grow jiu-jitsu within the British Army. It's always been a passion of mine since when I was serving, to get more women in. And it is growing, but it's just not as popular as the men. So I've got a few talks and conferences um, with the REMI Service Women's Network, that I'm the veteran lead for. So yeah, hopefully that's in October. I'm going to be going in and doing, showcasing what jiu-jitsu is, getting more people into it. And then with the Rioorg seminar today, hopefully hosting another one after summertime, because August is everyone always goes away.
Yeah.
So next, like moving into the autumn next year, hopefully a few more female Rioorg seminars. Um, I'm doing a Macmillan, uh, not open mat, but a Macmillan seminar to raise money for Macmillan. That's going to be with Bryony Tyrrell. So we're going to joint
Hmm.
seminar together. Well, she'll take like an hour and a half of like some wrestling, and I'll do the jiu-jitsu side, but we need to confirm a date for that. So that'll be
That'd be
quite
good.
fun and exciting. And then yeah, pretty much just trying to get back into major competitions. I mean, I'm a mum, I'm also a student. Trying to get out to World Masters is quite expensive. I've never been to World Masters in all of my jiu-jitsu career, because they like to put it at the end of August and it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so just trying to get out to these major events. But again, competitions back when I started were a lot more cheaper, and now everything's increased in price, so it's
Oh,
really hard
yeah.
to get
I
out
mean
there.
that's the big thing now. I look around and there's some around and I'm quite happy to go down and do it, but it's like 80, 100 quid a hit. You know what I mean? I haven't got that just to
Yeah,
drop on that. It's yeah, I don't know. I think we're starting to get the pushback the other way of tournaments now, because I know like the last few, I can't remember if it was the English or the British, have like half of what they did the year before and stuff like that. There's been a few, and wrestling's the same. Like the sign-ups are down on things, and it's like I don't know if it's that sort of the pushback. No, like the bubbles burst now, and everyone's starting to go the other way. Because I mean, after COVID, everyone wants to do everything, and now they're like, hold on a minute, can't afford all of these at
yeah.
once. But yeah, no, it is crazy, but. That's cool. That'd be good. What about then? I'm going to ask this, and we can cut this out if it's offensive, and I don't mean it to be offensive. if you got the chronic fatigue thing, you do loads of stuff. How do you manage that? Because like I know people who've got it and like it can be quite bad and can wipe them out. And I don't mean to pry into the personal side of it all, but I'm just intrigued.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, ask away. So basically, when I was in the military, I got a viral infection that, my body wasn't able to recover from. And then it, you know, transpired, and there's no, you have to rule everything out first before you can get diagnosed with chronic
Mhm.
fatigue. And then that happened, and then I went to Headley Court within the army. So that's their like main rehab centre.
Yeah,
And I done a couple of weeks inpatient stint there. And basically, you have in Civvy Street, like their guidelines. They're called NICE guidelines. So it's what like the NHS follow, like
yeah,
all the public health follow. And because I've always been very active, I kind of had surpassed what the normal boundaries were for, Joe Blogs in Civvy Street
yeah,
having chronic fatigue. Um, so they kind of were just like, well, you know, we don't really. There's, we don't really not understand, but there's nothing much really we can do for you.
yeah,
You're just going to have to learn all these tools, and it's going to be very much trial and error process. Um, I'm very, very stubborn person, and very much, you know, I will do something, and I will do it, and I don't really like to ask for help much. But that's just my military background. Like,
yeah,
asking for help is seen as like, failure and stuff like that. But
yeah,
um so yeah, it's don't get me wrong, like there are bad days, but I kind of just like, I wouldn't, the only people that really see my bad days are like my husband and like those closest to me. But I think if I wasn't to do anything, then I would just it would just be a lot worse. The fact that I am fit enough to keep going and not necessarily push through, but know what my limitations are. Hence why
yeah,
when I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue, I had to um, pick what I wanted to do, because, wrestling, Muay Thai, MMA, I couldn't do all of those things. So jiu-jitsu was the one that I loved the most to be able to carry on and do. But yeah, it's been a long, hard slog. I always remember when I was in the military, they would be like, "Oh, but don't worry, you'll be cured of it soon," and stuff like that. And it's like, well, no, this is a chronic illness. I've got it
yeah.
for life. It's
It does,
about
yeah,
adapting and you know learning what's new. Thankfully, when I was pregnant with my little girl, like I had no symptoms with my fatigue. I felt the best that I had ever felt. And that's probably a lot to do with like your hormonal changes within your body. But then obviously becoming a mum and stuff like that, it's kind of reset, and I've had to learn a lot more with my fatigue and how to keep going, and what not to do, and not saying yes to too many things, which,
mhm.
some days I, follow what I say, and some days it's like, do as I say, not what as I do. Um,
No, 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 that makes it
so,
nice to say. Yeah, now I've seen people be really struck down with that, and it's just, well, it's just impressive how you control it, and like you say, you know what it is, and you set your parameters of whatever you're doing. I get that because I've seen them try to do that, not take on too much of that. That's
I
no,
mean,
very
my
impressive.
husband might have different opinion of how I manage my fatigue, and he might be like, "Yeah, no, you don't do any of that." But
Yeah, opinions may vary, but that's really good. So looking back then, when you made that choice, do you think you made the right one with jiu-jitsu?
100%, yeah.
So excellent. Now, anyone listening to this might be thinking, okay, we want her for a seminar, or we want her to come up, train with us, or do something. What's the best way people can get hold of you?
I'm just opening my laptop because I set a new email up. Um, Sarah Jones dash BJJ seminars at outlook.com.
Cool. I'll link
Or
it in the show notes as well. Yeah.
or if you want to follow my newly opened up public account, because
Da,
it
da,
was
da.
private for a long time, but now it's public. It is fitness underscore mad 89. I think
Okay,
that's
and
my
again,
Instagram.
I will link that through into the show notes as well. So when people see it, they can click straight on it, and it will take them there.
Yeah,
Oh,
you might
that's
want to check
brilliant.
my Instagram handle because I can't remember it
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's I'll double check. That's okay. And again, have you got any final words, anything else you just want to share with the listeners?
I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, what is this weird sport of jiu-jitsu? It sounds very intense and stuff like that. I think try and find a local gym, give it a go, see what you think. It's not for everyone, but it will change your life for the better.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Brett.
Thank you again, Sarah, for taking the time to join us this week. I've been your host, Brett Summers, and this is the Grapple with Rye Show, episode 24. If you like to keep up to date with everything that we're up to, please go to the grappleofride.com. Now, if you like to check out your social medias, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and a lot of the other ones too. Now, if you like to listen to your podcasts, you can get us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcatcher, Podcast Addict, all the different podcast apps that are available. You will find us. If you could give us a review and some likes and some follows, that would be really, really appreciated. And if you like to watch our show, you can watch us on YouTube every Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. Okay, that brings this episode to a close. We will be back next week with another guest. So stay safe and stay on the mats.